Okay, good morning, hello. So today I've decided that we're going to be talking about this Twitter poster, formerly known as Karlyn B, anti-communist cult leader. Let's check out her bio. I expose and decode the radical revolutionary far left in America. Find my work at decodetheleft.com. Also follow Decode the Left, Queer Marxism, Red Menace Supply. They have 124,000 followers, which is strange. Let's get into it. Oh, also, they've written a book called The Communist Manifesto, a Revolutionary Fairy Tale. That's important because even the fact that they named their book something that's obviously already a name of a book, and then they just tagged on another line to it and diminished the context of the message, this all will contribute to my perception of this content creator going forward with my analyzation of their work. Okay, let's get into it. This first video I want to show you is a video that they posted, and mind you, it's pinned to their profile. So it's at the very top. Here we go. 2 days ago, multiple members of the Denver Communist called to use anti-ICE activism to overthrow the government. It's not about immigration. It's about overthrowing the U.S. government. This exclusive clip was recorded by a member of my community undercover with the group. Okay, so focus on these words, overthrowing the U.S. government, all right? And then focus on the fact that what she names her book is The Communist Manifesto, a Revolutionary Fairy Tale, a lot of other things that she says. Let me give you another example. This is great. We've lived to continue our stream from yesterday. We've lived to continue our stream from yesterday about queer liberation, and don't forget, we have a spy team later. So a lot of weird typos going on here. A lot of impulsive tweeting, I would say. That's just one example of these typos. There's many more, and a lot of just very shock value statements, rage bait, the kids call it, right? With that in mind, let's check this video out.
When they come for the left, we can't say we're not the left. When they characterize support for the overthrow of the United States government and extremism on migration, race, and gender as domestic terrorism, we cannot make a U-turn and disavow our politics.
Oh, did they literally just admit that they support the overthrow of the United States government?
Did that literally just happen to...
So I think that what's confusing her is the fact that just like she does, she uses terms that sound a lot more verbose than what's actually the intention behind them, because she goes on to explain their intention of what they want to do. And to me, it's not really an actual overthrow of the US government. It's a revitalization and a reorganization of a system that already exists and that could significantly be better. Maybe you could use a better term like drain the swamp. I don't know. But you see what I'm trying to say? We want the same things. We just have different ideas of how to achieve these goals of making things better. And that's what I mean by the same things better. I know that we have different ideas of what's better, but let's keep going on with this.
Does anyone else show you this content on the internet?
With this sort of monstrosity that is the United States and the American ruling class, the only way to put an end to this escalation of violence and authoritarianism is to overthrow it as a whole. It has to be gone and overthrown through revolutionary struggle. You can't reform it. You can't make it softer or better, quote unquote. This is what America is. This is what the United States is. And it's our task as people who live under the boot of American authoritarianism to overthrow it.
We also need to demonstrate our solidarity and physically take part in the movement.
Now, I know he said better, but he doesn't know what he's saying, because the reality is that is what you want to do. Obviously, these people, like I said, are doing the same exact thing that she's doing, but ironically, in a much more private way. You'd think that if you get into these private conversations that they're having, that you're having to record secretly, they'd be saying much more nefarious things and much more intentional things. But in reality, they use these big statements, but then when they talk about what they actually mean, it's things that aren't actually that intense. They are big changes, but they're not coming for your freedom.
To the best of our abilities, by joining ICE watches and protests. We need to do everything we can to help stop the reign of terror, as well as politically intervene in the movement. We need to do this out in the open and not succumb to fear and despair. When they come for the left, we can't say we're not the left. When they characterize support for the overthrow of the United States government and extremism on migration, race, and gender as domestic terrorism, we cannot make a U-turn and disavow our politics.
Oh, did they literally just admit that they support the overthrow of the United States government?
No.
Did that literally just...
No. And if you can't understand the subcontext of what these people are trying to say, you just aren't a person. I'm just kidding. You are. But the reality is that you can pick apart these words all you want, but when you look at the actual actions of what these people are doing, I don't think you can disagree with the fact that it's no more radical than things that the right does in order to organize and intervene with the information and the processes that are going on in order to make things either better or worse.
Does anyone else show you this content on the internet?
Thanks for being a member of the channel for 1 month, my guy. I appreciate it. They literally just said they want to overthrow the...
Don't catch me ever just randomly interjecting in the middle of a statement that I'm making to shill to some sort of donation. This is all these people do this for, by the way, is for money. They grift. This person was on the left before this, and then they had a big shift, which is probably financially motivated.
Government, and they're not going to disavow that politics. Let's listen to that again. Thank you, communists, for this gift you're giving us today.
We're not
Wasn't really a gift if you had a person secretly record them.
the left. When they characterize support for the overthrow of the United States government and extremism on migration, race, and gender as domestic
I like her finger. Oh, yeah, we know. We're listening to it. Okay, we know that your mouth isn't moving, so it's not you talking. Thank you for the clarification, though.
terrorism, we cannot make a U-turn and disavow our politics.
Oh, yeah?
When they criminalize dissent, we need to respond with more dissent. When they're murdering ICE watchers, we need to join up with ICE Watch.
What's wrong with that? When they're murdering ICE watchers, we need to join up with ICE Watch. She looks at that like it's a bad thing.
Of terror on their city and the shocking street murders of their neighbors, the people of Minneapolis have inspired the world with their courage. We must organize as revolutionaries in that same spirit to abolish ICE and the systems that created it. No one is coming to save us, but we can come together, organize, fight, and save each other.
Abolish ICE and the systems that created it.
Yes, ICE, it's bad. Sorry. It's always been bad, even when Obama created it, or it was created under his administration. It's always been bad.
That means the United
And if I have to explain that to you, you're watching the wrong channel. Sorry.
States government. Let's just listen to that whole part again.
Just for funsies.
We're not the left. When they characterize support for the overthrow of the United States government and extremism on migration, race, and gender as domestic terrorism, we cannot make a U-turn and disavow our politics. When they criminalize dissent, we need to respond with more dissent. When they're murdering ICE watchers, we need to join up with ICE Watch. Rather than retreating in the face of ICE's reign of terror on their city and the shocking street murders of their neighbors, the people of Minneapolis have inspired the world with their courage. We must organize as revolutionaries in that same spirit to abolish ICE and the systems that created it. No one is coming to save us, but we can come together, organize, fight, and save each other. The end.
The end.
The recording has stopped.
Oh, beautiful words.
Okay, sorry.
Notice how she has nothing to say about anything this person was saying. She just takes exactly what she wants to hear, amplifies that, captions it, pushes it out to her following. That's all they hear.
About that, I missed that. Go ahead, DC.
Ooh, this guy's crazy.
Yeah, great presentation, Maria. It was excellent. I'm Ken, he, him, Firebrand Denver at-large member based in Pittsburgh. I think you covered essentially everything on, the very recent history of this entity in and of itself, and just the modernization of border policing. But I kind of touched on this a little bit in my breakout as well, that the history of anti-immigrant racism is also foundational to the founding of the United States. So this is essentially, as I said...
Shh, look at her reactions. Guys, who is watching this and finding any sort of entertainment or informational... I can't even. It's leaving me speechless because it just seems so outrageous that people look at this person and say, oh, this person's intelligent. They're not listening to anything this person is saying.
In the breakout group, these anti-immigrant policies and these mobilizations and this violence is almost, as they say, as American as apple pie. And I say that because a lot of people look...
If you don't know, historically, we haven't treated immigrants very well. Look it up!
at, the escalation of this under Trump and say it's, especially more the liberal leaning and reformists on the left saying this is unique. This is something that is totally new. And while it is unique in terms of the ratcheting up of authoritarianism, there is a history to Americanism and its idea. And I'm not talking about...
Which is why, by the way, everyone's ready for this to happen. Nobody's pushing back on it other than people on the left predominantly.
The Pan-Americanism that Bad Bunny referred to in the Super Bowl halftime show. I'm talking about Americanism in the United States and how it perceives itself. And if we go back to even 1798, when President John Adams signed the Alien and Sedition Acts, some of the provisions in that included increasing citizenship residency from 5 to 14 years. It allowed presidential deportation of quote-unquote dangerous aliens, and it criminalized false or malicious speech against the government. Much of what we see to this day, much of what we saw with
this is all real.
The Patriot Act. And so with this sort of monstrosity that is the United States and the American ruling class,
See, all she hears is monstrosity. Nice.
Only way to put an end to this escalation of violence and authoritarianism is to overthrow it as a whole. it has to be gone and overthrown through revolutionary struggle. You can't reform it. You can't make it softer or better, quote unquote. This is what America is. This is what the United States is. And it's our task as people who live under the boot of American authoritarianism to overthrow it.
Now, I can disagree with his vernacular in this instance. I do think that it is objectively making something better if you are shifting the system that it has been calcified into, right? No one's burning down nothing, okay? Abolishing is not the same thing as anarchy. And if you think it is, I can't sit here and explain that to you. I can't sit here and explain to you that if you are looking into the private conversations of these people that you consider radical, and this is what you hear, and you hear this as radical, there's a problem. You are just intentionally being ignorant to the context and to the nuances of what this person's saying. And that's all that is. And that's okay. Here's the thing. You have to be able to, like I can right now, disagree with how this person's saying this, but also simultaneously agree with the ideology or the actions that he's saying they are willing to take and that they're encouraging. I agree with all of that stuff. I don't agree with overthrowing the government, and I also don't agree that these things are necessarily identifying as that correctly. I don't think it's overthrowing any sort of government. I think it's shifting the system that has been calcified. And that's it. I think that's a good thing. And if you don't think that making something better is a good thing, then what is the point of this person that you've supported for the past year and the election before that? Obviously.
I knew he was going to say something insane because I have this guy on video like 3 other times talking about overthrowing the government. This is not the first time I've heard this person.
She can only hear that statement and doesn't have the ability to look into anything else that he said. And I'll tell you why. Let's get into that. I'm done with this video. Okay, let's find this. Is she actually a doctor? She has a PhD, Industrial Organizational, from Capella University. That means she is a doctor of philosophy, not a medical doctor, psychiatrist, or clinical psychologist. Her PhD's specialty is workplace organizational psychology, leadership management, etc., not clinical mental health. The bottom line is that even though she does have a legitimate organizational psychology doctorate, in reality, she's just a political influencer with a strong ideological framing, and she uses psychological language metaphorically, not clinically. And she's not a cult leader, even though she calls herself that. Ironically, she uses these big terms in these ways that she thinks that these people are using them in a much more shock, rage bait kind of way. And she uses psychological language metaphorically, not clinically. So there's a lot of misuse of terms going on here. I wrote all of these things down as notes to how I felt about all this, so it's not going to be as free form as what's been happening right now, but here we go. She accuses the left of being organized. Well, if they're organized, they're clearly doing a horrible job. She views trans people as not people when she says she sees teachers openly teaching trans ideology to students. First of all, even if you disagree with transitioning, do we ban every guy from being a teacher? Because I'm pretty sure there's been plenty of cases where men have sexually preyed on their students. Oh, and don't get me started on female teachers. No more female teachers then, huh? Of course not, because this has nothing to do with the safety of children and everything to do with exploiting the surface level reaction people have to these stories. Especially considering even people who are accepting obviously can't help the gut reaction they have to certain images because of the way most Americans are raised to hate queer people. Let's just be honest about that. I'm queer and I hate them. One of her chats asks for actual information to help them take action. She explodes on them and calls them a baby. I find it ironic how much she complains about people complaining when what's really happening is she is simply pointing out people that stand for what they believe in and try to vote those things in and bring light to them and create organizational, pragmatic things to try and facilitate their ideology just like everybody else is doing. People love to say, oh, the left doesn't care about this, but they care about this. Here's the difference. When somebody on the left learns about something that is wrong, they can say it's objectively wrong and will agree that this or that person should be prosecuted or this should be looked into, whatever the case may be. There is a certain aspect, there's a certain truth to relative experience. At the same time, though, if we're going to be masculine and be these adults, right, we need to understand that relativity does exist for a reason. It's a word for a reason because, yes, even though that you do experience experience negative things and you do experience adversity relative to your situation, you should have the wherewithal, the understanding, the empathy to understand that it doesn't take away from your experience if you can acknowledge that other people have it much worse than you and are at a higher disadvantage than you could ever imagine. They have a bad spawn point. That's okay to acknowledge. It's okay. Why not use that power for good? That's all I'm trying to say. It frustrates me that people like this use their
intelligence, I'll say,
to manipulate terminology and instances of people actually trying to do something for good, and just brings these people into more negativity
and more vitriolic hate
for the other side based off of misinformation and misinterpretation of what these people actually want. That's all for now.